Welcome. Thanks for coming along this morning on graveyard shift, basically on a Sunday morning on Father's Day. But bear with me. I probably should start the talk by saying, and now for something completely different. You talk about chiropractic and perhaps where it has been and where perhaps it could be in the future. In doing so, trying to incorporate some of the buzzwords of and approaches of modern healthcare. To start with, we're all about ageing at this conference, so we'll have a brief overview of the ageing situation and why it's actually relevant to all of us. And then I'll take a bit of a specific spin on how that may be relevant to chiropractic and where chiropractic might fit into an anti-ageing agenda. Then we'll talk about the traditional role of chiropractic and perhaps explain to those that are not chiros the big variety that we see in the approaches with the chiro. And then we'll move into a new model which hopefully is an integrating model. And I think a lot of what you'll see in that you could quite possibly see in many other presentations by other professionals here this weekend. So for those that are not chiros, the first part to start with is just basically a definition. Put simply, it's about chiro is about the diagnosis, treatment and prevention of mechanical disorders of a neuromuscular skeletal spin. Now, increasingly though, there is this element of the effect of all of these and the association of all of these with general health. And I think what will become relevant shortly is that I think chiropractic has a role to play in the management of wider health issues. In terms of the ageing, we've all seen this sort of data that's coming through now. Just focus your way up to the right-hand side of the screen here. Basically, the baby boomers are coming through the system as a very big bolus, and as they move through the system, they're taking up all sorts of healthcare costs in a fairly dramatic way. So our population is getting older. As we get older, fewer people are working. And the fewer people that are working, that has implications too in terms of how much income the society is generating. Now, when you marry all of that with the concept, again, in the red area up the end there, have a look at the age groups and the cost per person as you roll through. And then you go and have a look at the end of life. And you'll very rapidly see that there is a dramatic amount of increase in the cost per person, all other factors being kept equal, simply because they're older. So you marry the fact that we're all getting older as a nation and this sort of statistic, and then you begin to realise why things governments are really on notice here. Now, chiropractic is about musculoskeletal. Here's an example here of osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis kind of variables, sorts of things that we play with on a daily basis. And these things here, again, as you get older, the incidence of all of these conditions and other injury-related conditions increases dramatically. When we look at it from a health system cost point of view, as you can see, there's a whole series of general conditions and whatnot, but have a look at the ones up the top there. Osteoarthritis, depression, there's injury, there's the RA. So a lot of the things that we are dealing with on a daily basis in chiropractic are factors that are actually important to society at large and are factors that are growing as a problem. So really, we have this sort of interrelationship between all of these factors. We have an increasing number and an increase in severity of the conditions being seen. That is leading to an increase in the cost. We have a reduced income pool to deal with that cost, and then we have possibly a reduced ability to support the elderly as they come through. And that is what's got the governments spooked. Because you could probably talk to any practitioner and they would tell you things like that quote at the top there. We have to change. Change is now. Right? That was actually given by the Treasurer of this country. Okay, so it's about money. They don't care about politics. They don't care about where you spin and where you come from. For them, it's just about the bottom line, which is the dollar. That graph there shows, depending on the scenario that you pick, that we are going to have a negative shortfall in terms of GDP, up to 5% of GDP increased costs as we move forward into 2040-50. This is a significant, we're talking billions. And this is why now I think this presents us with some opportunity as a group, and particularly when looking at a healthcare perspective. The focus to date has all been about let's play with pathology and try to deal with pathology. So it's an end game. All of the problems have already happened in terms of standard medicine. The alternative, the CAM practitioners, probably up the other end of the scale, but they haven't really ever played together very well until more recently, and I think that this is where the real opportunity is, because as the focus changes away from trying to deal with the end problem, which is where medicine typically is now, we'll get a different focus. So the system, generally speaking now, is becoming threatened by our standard practices across all healthcare. And so the people that hold the strings to the purses down in Canberra, they are now actively looking for solutions to get away from this model of wait for it to basically break before we try to do something about it, and move it back towards, well, can we prevent this? Now, yes, everyone puts their hand up, says, yes, we can prevent this, but the issue is, do you have evidence to support the fact that you can prevent this? And this is also really important. So really, what we're about now is about changing. The changing of the guard is upon us, and I think that those that can sit within a certain framework will move forward with this as medicine, and I mean that collectively, as an umbrella term, reinvents itself moving forward. This is now the focus. Even the treasurers are talking about wellness. Now, you know, to have money people starting to talk about wellness is I think, a sign of the times, and we need to kind of get with that program. Well, in fact, most of the CAM therapists are already in that paradigm, and it was more how do you interact with the others and how do you bring it all together so that it sits together synergistically. So where does chiro fit in on all of this, and what is it all about? Okay, chiropractic started in 1895, for those that don't know. It was this fella here, D.D. Palmer, and he was quite a visionary in his day. Now, much has been said about his background and all the rest of it, but let's just leave that for a moment, because Einstein was a clerk too. So it's not all about the tags you wear. It's about your ideas and what you can do. So, put simply, the basic chiro principles from a traditional perspective have been one of the body heals itself. It's a natural process. Above, down, inside out, which refers to the neurology and a specific focus on the neurology and its role in health maintenance and repair. There is a spinal and neurological mechanism to what is occurring, that the treatments are typically done by hand. Now, they talk about this concept of removal of subluxation, and for the non-chiropractors, subluxation in this term does not mean a partial dislocation. You can probably think of that better as a manipulable lesion or a fixation of a joint. There's a number of terms that get used for this, but it's suboptimal spinal function is probably the best way to look at it. Now, the big issue, and probably what explains most about the practitioners, and maybe those that you've seen from time to time, is that it's almost a dualistic profession. There's the vitalistic chiropractors and there's the mechanistic type chiropractors. And unfortunately, traditionally, they have been mutually exclusive. They don't like each other. They both think each other are a waste of time and space. And they just don't get on, and I think that this has severely hampered the progression of our profession, because I don't think either extreme is where the answers lie. It's integration, as with most things. So you may have heard of terms like straights and mixers. The straights are more the traditional type that follow a sort of an 1895 based D.D. Palmer type philosophy, or B.J. Palmer, who is his son, and the mixers are typically referred to as those chiros that more embracing modern healthcare practices and evidence.